loss of their classmates. 373,000 Palestinian children in Gaza are now in need of psychosocial treatment. Israeli forces attacked the basic infrastructure necessary for survival, including Gaza's sole power plant and its largest sewage treatment plant, which meant that during these 53 days, in addition to the flow of blood and the sprout of corpses, 15,000 tons of solid waste also leaked onto Gaza's streets. It destroyed 419 businesses, 36 fishing boats, 42,000 acres of farmland, exacerbating the unemployment rate before the start of this attack, which was 45%. And if you just consider unemployment of the Palestinians aged 20 to 24, unemployment is 70%. And Israel targeted civilians directly as well, putting to rest the question of whether or not Hamas used Palestinians as human shields when Israel targeted 7 UNRWA schools. In one instance in Jabalia, UNRWA provided the GPS coordinates to Israeli forces no less than 17 times. And they targeted that school, providing shelter to 3,000, killing 17, including 4 children. In Shaja'iyya, it was worse. There was an explicit campaign of revenge killing in what, similar to what's been termed as the Dahi Doctrine in 2006 in Lebanon, has been termed the Hannibal Doctrine, which is the all-out assault to kill and shoot as much as possible in the case where an Israeli soldier is considered captured. Captured as opposed to kidnapped, because in warfare you can capture soldiers, and that is a very brutal tactic, and to do it through a network of tunnels. It killed 150 in Rafah in similar fashion, and shot dead civilians fleeing in the back in Shuja'iyya, in Gaza. And in one of the most chilling episodes, in mid-July, 2 Israeli missiles consecutively and coldly killed Ismail, Zakaria, Ahed, and Muhammad Bakr, aged 9 through 11, as they played on Gaza's mutilated shores. The worst part of these casualties is that it wasn't the first time that Palestinians in Gaza would endure the horror of being held captive without shelter and subject to a massive killing campaign with modern, precise weapons technology. Worse, perhaps, is that this will not be the last time. The ceasefire established on August 26th is vague, it lacks any implementation mechanisms, and it is almost identical to the Egyptian brokered ceasefire established in November 2012 between Israel and Hamas. The 53-day onslaught did nothing to alter the status quo for Palestinians or for Israelis. And yet, unless a political agreement is achieved and ushers a viable solution to the conflict, which Israel has explicitly rejected, this will be repeated. Which is not to say that nothing has been accomplished. For Palestinians, it was a show of resistance, a powerful demonstration that they will not be bombed into submission, and a momentary show of national unity across legal and physical bifurcations, violently separating Palestinians from one another. For Israelis, this recurring campaign has become necessary to maintain its domination. Rather than reflect its power, this brute force, and by the way, an escalating brute force, evidences the weakness of Israel's hegemonic project. In contrast to the relative success of settler colonialism here in the United States and arguably in Canada, and success meaning that we take it for granted. In Palestine, Palestinians make sure that it is not taken for granted. Similar to how South Africans make sure it is not taken for granted. And similar to how communities from the Maori in Australia and indigenous people here continue to contest that we take settler colonialism for granted. But Israel has now constructed a situation in which it has no choice but to pursue these campaigns. They cannot pummel Palestinians into submission, although not for a lack of trying. They have rejected a political solution and a two-state solution as evidenced by discussions that there will never be a retreat from the West Bank, and that look what happened in Gaza when we gave them freedom. And although they would like to, they cannot reoccupy the Gaza Strip physically, although that occupation, according to Article 43 of the Hague Regulation, which is based on a test of effective control, has never ceased. But they cannot physically reoccupy Gaza in the way that they occupy the West Bank with the presence of settlers and military infrastructure, as was repeatedly explained by former Finance Minister and existing Knesset member Yuval Steinmetz. Because despite all obstacles, under the siege, Hamas has managed to develop its military capability into an organized paramilitary force in the Gaza Strip. Once Israeli boots were on the ground, they immediately lost their military advantage, as Hamas was able to use its network of tunnels in order to surprise attack Israeli forces, and in fact, killed 66 Israeli soldiers. Its rockets, in contrast, and mortars killed 5 Israeli civilians, including 1 Israeli child and a Thai foreign worker. So, in light of these foreclosed possibilities, no reoccupation with boots and military infrastructure, no political solution, no pummeling of the Palestinian population into submission, Israel has aggressively pursued, especially since its engagement in 2005, a military counterinsurgency strategy in Gaza, marked by remote control and low-intensity combat most of the time, and with merciless military campaigns aimed at mowing the lawn that Nadia described, regularly and sometimes. But Israel's campaign against the Gaza Strip is not Gaza-specific, it is Palestine-specific. It's built on the twin axioms that guide Israeli policy, namely to obtain the maximum amount of Palestinian land with the minimum amount of Palestinians on it, and to concentrate the maximum number of Palestinians onto a minimum amount of land. Israel has successfully done this in the West Bank since 1967 under the veneer of a peace process, and it sped up this campaign during the Second Intifada. And here I will show you in images what I wouldn't be able to capture in words sufficiently. Here is the green line demarcating the West Bank. Can you see it? Here is the image of the West Bank. Through occupation, and through especially the veneer of the peace process, Israel has demarcated areas A, which is under complete Palestinian control, or 6%, areas B, under Palestinian civilian control and Israeli military control, area C, which is under full Israeli military and civilian control, 62% of the West Bank. Under the veneer of the peace process, Israel has tripled the number of its settlements and its outposts, which are slated for settlement construction. Add to that in addition to this land that has been confiscated, the maximum amount of land, the minimum amount of Palestinians, you have the apartheid wall, which runs through the maldistribution of resources, first and most importantly of which is water, farmers cannot live there, and instead Israel has built, with the presence of only 6,000 settlers, a $1 billion palm date industry. Here is what that would look like in the West Bank and what has been done since 1967. But inside what's known as something random, Israel proper, which is the name given to Israel because it has never declared its borders and yet to declare its borders, Israel is pursuing the same policy against its Palestinian, Muslim, and Christian citizens. And of course, I won't be able to do justice to this in the way that Attorney Suhaib Bashara would be able to do with much greater sophistication, but let me just say that this policy is rampant within Israel as well vis-a-vis its own citizens. We have seen this in the form of reducing the population altogether by the ban on family reunification. We are seeing this in the form of the PRAR plan, which suggests to remove 70,000 Palestinian citizens of Israel located in the south of Israel, or the Negev, the Negev Desert, and to relocate them into urban townships where they'll be concentrated. In their place, Israel, the JNF, the Jewish National Fund, will plant a forest, and Israel will build Jewish-only settlements within Israel. And 2 days ago, the Israeli High Court found that the Admissions Committee's law, which permits individuals to exclude others from living with them because of social unsuitability, as constitutional. Note that this should not be confused. This is a proxy for the exclusion of Palestinians to live in mixed housing with their Jewish counterparts within Israel, where they are all citizens. And this is extremely important because the High Court itself said that Palestinians could live in Jewish neighborhoods, mostly in 434 communities in the Negev and in the Galilee, in the Ta'adan case in 2000, that it said you cannot exclude Palestinian families from living in these Jewish communities within Israel. And now, 14 years later, the High Court itself said that yes, you can exclude Palestinians, thereby increasing the concentration of the Palestinian population. How does this then apply? Oh, and let me show you a map then of the Negev. This is the Negev today, and you can see these plans of concentrating Palestinians within Israel. And I couldn't find a suitable map, maybe I should ask you about this afterwards, of concentration of Palestinian communities, mostly in the Galilee, where this is most rampant. Okay. So, how does this then apply in Gaza? Where Israel couldn't do this by a formal occupation and the expansion of settlements, and hasn't done it by laws that applies to its civilian population, it's done it as a form of warfare. And here you see that in the context of this last onslaught, Israel has expanded its buffer zone of the already tiny Gaza Strip to 44% of Gaza. So now they live in even smaller amounts of land, and you can see that in Shajariya and Beit Hanun, the sites of the most intense massacres, that they were cleared out of the way to make room for an expanded buffer zone and the increasing concentration of Palestinians on smaller and smaller amounts of land. This campaign is not a campaign against Palestinians in Gaza. It is a campaign against all of Palestine. Can I get the light? I'm done with this slide. Thank you. So, why then is the campaign in Gaza so violent and different what it is in the West Bank and elsewhere? It's not for a lack of trying.